Let's go back to the class, because there's just nothing more exciting to be able to introduce to a Diablo game than another class for players to check out.
Yeah, this is a pretty cool thing. We don't get to do this very often, right?
I think it was you that said that, John. There's always room around the campfire.
There's always a little room.
We had kind of like very core archetypes to begin with. The brute strength of the barbarian, the arcane knowledge of the sorceress, kind of a return of a shape-shifting classic with the druid. No RPG lineup is complete without that dexterity class that's kind of like defeating enemies with finesse, with speed. And we kept coming back to just the idea of bringing it to the kind of the godfather of all dexterity-based archetypes, the rogue that we saw in Diablo 1.
I mean, you got to be excited to have the rogue back. I mean, I know that like when we were exploring different classes, like you had talked about some of your experience with Diablo 1, right?
Oh, for sure. So one of the things that's super cool is like the rogue was always able to adapt their playstyles. So fans of Diablo 1, Diablo 2 rogues will be able to create very archetypical rogues, starting with the weapon selection. On the melee weapon side, rogues can use swords and daggers, as well as bows and crossbows on the ranged side.
You know, just those sort of dagger attacks mixed with bow attacks, it's like, it just looks great on screen. With all the classes having this real strong identity as far as the animations and what they do, you think about the druid and shapeshifting, or the barbarian with sort of, you know, his leap attacks. There's just all these great things that you discover with the rogue that you can't really do with other classes.
I love that you can start cosmetically from such a iconic place where you're wearing the red armor, you kind of look like part of the sisterhood of the Sightless Eye from the original games. You know, you can maybe even add some tattoos into the mix, some scars, make that rogue your own. Or if your fantasy of the rogue is a more traditional RPG outlaw, you're definitely able to create that and put on your kind of hood and half mask and be more of a shadowy character.
Yeah, and the character customization, you kind of mentioned it, being able to craft that, you know, that the class of your dreams or your nightmares. It was a feature that I was honestly super nervous about when we started, because we never had this in a Diablo game. But seeing where it is now, it's one of those things that like I'm super excited about with where we're at. There's just a lot of creativity and fun looks, and you can be that you know, tattooed criminal outlaw, or you can be a more noble looking kind of, you know, sort of like thief with good morals.
Well, one of the things that we kind of kept running with beyond just the cosmetics was customization. We had this niche to fill in the class lineup that spoke to the finesse player, to the dexterity player, and just that everyone's idea of what that could be was a little bit different, whether it leaned more on range or melee. But we took that a little bit of a step further. We really wanted to have each class in our game have that one thing that makes you go like, that's bullshit, when you see a player use it, and then makes you want to re-roll that class, because no other class gets it. For the rogue, is the class specialization. The 3 specializations are combo points, Shadow Realm, and exploit weakness.
I like Shadow Realm because I take the problem and I make it smaller. I mean, it's just, I just pull 3 guys into the Shadow Realm and duke it out, and then I come back in, I'm like, all right, smaller problem.
I love the idea of exploit weakness. The way it works is during some of the enemy attacks, players will see an icon flash over the enemy's head, during which time they will get to retaliate with much more damage than an ordinary attack. If you're quick on the draw, this is the specialization for you. I'm just like a little bit skill capped there, and you know, like every time I try to make it work, I'm just a little bit shy of the skill level that's required for that.
It's almost like you're a surgeon, and it requires a really strong ability to assess what's happening all around you.
My personal favorite is the combo point specialization. As you might expect, this ability lets you build multiple combo points, which enhance your spender's effectiveness in combat. It basically, you just like get into this rhythm of combat of like 3 builders to a spender. It lets you build up to these big moments. It almost makes like a rhythm game out of combat, which I really enjoy. And the way the class specializations work is you will work with one of the world groups of rogues around the world in Sanctuary that you will find, and do class-specific quests that no other class can do. Whether it's the Sisterhood of the Sightless Eye, the remnants of that order that you choose to work with, or the mercenaries of Kyrgyzstan, or the outlaw smugglers of the swamps of Hawazar, depending maybe on what speaks to your class fantasy, or depending on which specialization speaks to you or you find more powerful, you'll be able to complete that quest line and then activate that specialization, which then you can mix and match with any of the playstyles. So you could be a combo points, ranged, or melee player, but you could also be an exploit weakness, range, or melee, or hybrid player. It just gives the class such huge variety in builds and playstyles.
I love how that ties into the open world aspect. The ability to go to Kyrgyzstan or Hawazar and get these special quests that only the rogue can get. That touches on one of the things that I love that we've done, which is like connecting the weapons and equipment to regions. When you're exploring the world and you pick up a sword in Kyrgyzstan, it's a scimitar, right? If you're up in Skazglan, which is up in the north, it's more of like a broadsword. It's this sort of like this, it's a subtle thing, but I think it really, different armors that you get in different regions look like they're from the place. And so giving that sense of place in the world is something that I every time I play the game, I feel it, I see it in just like subtle ways, and just really enhances the overall sense of immersion and experience. And I just want to see what's around the corner.
The weapons are also like, going back all the way to Diablo II, just such an integral part of the class, and the ability to augment your weapon through magic, through enhancements, is just something that really spoke to us when we try to tap into the core of the class. Going back to those mercenaries that you could hire, it was always kind of cool to see what kind of special arrow shot they would come with. And it's something we paid homage to with the imbue system. All the way from directly elemental imbues like the frost imbue, which feels a lot like the ice arrows that the D2 mercenaries used to shoot, all the way to we expanded it to feel a little grittier, a little darker, into things like poison imbue and shadow imbue. Just the ability to take any sort of attack and kind of mix and match with those imbues.
Once that kind of clicked for me that I could take any ability and imbue it with either of those elements. Rain of arrows with frost and rain of arrows with acid is completely different, right? Like you're essentially freezing the battlefield, and then I just love poison imbue because of the gruesome deaths that all the monsters experience. And we've had a ton of fun making that art, so it's always fun to kind of see just a field of goatmen melt into nothing. You just kill everything on the screen in a gory mess, which I never really gets old.
It's a really flexible way to take a build that you're already comfortable with, that you already like. Say you're really comfortable with flurry and shadow step as kind of your melee skills, and you find yourself needing more crowd control. Without changing your playstyle, you can just add the frost imbue to your bar, and now you're able to use those same abilities to slow down enemies or build up to a full freeze.
Yeah, and frost imbue plays pretty well with group play as well, right? Where I can freeze an enemy and somebody else can blow it up.
Or also the way that chills work in the game, they build up to a full freeze. So if your best buddy is a sorceress player, your chill spells and your frost imbues chills will actually build up faster than if you were using a single player. So just ask to open with Blizzard before you frost imbue, and you'll basically be freezing enemies twice as fast, which is super awesome synergy. So the last thing that's worth spending some time talking about the Rogue is like how mobile the class is, just how able the class is to kind of close the gap between themselves and the enemy. Even while they're mounted, you might find yourself, a full screen away and just dismounting into a rain of arrows, closing the rest of that gap with maybe like a dash, and then getting back out of there, dropping some caltrops. They can basically control the fluid motion of combat in a way that no other class can. That's something that beyond all of the other customization options that you have, whether it's the playstyle, whether it's the range at which you engage with enemies, whether it's the cosmetics, just the sheer mobility of the class lets you just adapt to the situations. Even when you would have totally been toast as another class, a room full of elites, you're able to use offensive abilities in creative ways. Abilities like Shadow Step, right? Like abilities like Shadow Realm, abilities like Dash. So you're able to kind of like use them to your advantage in a way that gets you out of a very dangerous situation by picking that one lone skeleton archer that maybe is not surrounded by everything else. You can Shadow Step there, get out of the way, and live to fight another day, which just feels like such a Rogue thing to do.
When I play the Rogue, I really do feel like surgical precision. You know, I really feel like I can move through the whole screen without. It feels kind of effortless and almost sometimes a little unfair. It's like when I go into Shadow Realm and I'm dashing. I'm like, am I cheating? Did I just break the game?
And we'll hear more about PvP in a little bit, but I just couldn't go without mentioning that some of our most feared PvP players on the team play Rogue, and just the way they're able to like surprise you. You might be with a group of friends, and just that mobility lets them go to the middle of the group, unleash a rain of arrows that's frost imbued, and before you know it, you're all frozen. And looking at a Rogue while you're frozen, let me tell you, there are fewer scarier things in our game right now than that.
So Luis, this was, this was like the ultimate blog post. This has been a lot of fun getting to share a new addition to the campfire. And of course, there's probably going to be more in the future, right? We always say there's a little bit more room around that campfire.
That's right. And that pretty much wraps it up for the Rogue.